Senator Singh.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy Speaker. Since the election of the new Abbott government in September last year, I've met with a number of concerned individuals and groups in civil society, each with very important issues which are being ignored or being exacerbated by this new coalition government. And tonight I would like to highlight an issue which touches the very heart of what this current Abbott government stands for. It shows a lack of compassion and understanding which is absent completely from their actions. Immigration has been a long debated issue in this parliament, and there is no easy fix to that. But the attitude by the current Abbott government's policy lacks basic humanity, compassion and accountability. It is creating animosity with our neighbours, and it is treating communities as pawns for political gain. The tensions between Indonesia and Australia continue to rise as Operation Sovereign Borders pushes literal borders. The failure of the government to fulfil key promises made to Papua New Guinea, making them again a political pawn in their immigration policy, continues also. But in particular, the treatment of asylum seekers has lacked dignity and ownership of the issue by this government, instead hiding under a veil of secrecy, a lack of transparency, and not providing the public with any clear answers. Minister Morrison has stooped to an all-time low when, on the 19th of December last year, he issued a new direction under Section 499 of the Migration Act. His new Direction 62, to be applied retrospectively, seeks to create a second class of resident in Australia. A resident who, despite being found to be a genuine refugee, despite successfully adhering to the rules and the regulations in place, will be unable to sponsor family members in coming to Australia. The Minister's direction to the Department of Immigration and Border Protection instructed staff to accord the lowest possible priority to the processing of family stream visa applications for people who have arrived by boat in Australia. I'm not questioning the right of the Minister to issue the direction, but I do question why such a directive is needed. If the intention is to deter people arriving by boat in Australia, then why apply the direction retrospectively to people that are already here? Why punish people already here that have already become permanent residents? In an unnecessarily cruel letter sent to applicants, they are informed that if you are deemed to be an illegal maritime arrival, that the lowest priority will apply to all family stream applications. It goes on to state that the visa application will not be processed for a number of years and is unlikely to be successful. This applies even where families face compelling and compassionate circumstances. Compelling and compassionate circumstances such as persecution on the basis of their religion, sexuality and race in their country of origin. This is a directive that has been applied to sponsors who are already permanent residents. Permanent residents wanting to sponsor their family to come to Australia. They are not asking for any monetary support from government. They are working hard in Australia, raising funds to sponsor their family to come and join them here in Australia to help rebuild their lives. These residents contribute to the Australian community. They work, they engage, yet this government seeks to curtail their rights. They are not seeking a free ride. They are paying to sponsor their family to come to Australia. They have already started their application process. They had already received letters from the Department of Immigration and Border Protection alerting them to the fact that their application was in train, only to then receive this Direction 62 saying something completely opposite. So penalising those in our community that have proven their legitimate claims is simply abhorrent and is simply wrong. It is an unprecedented attack on the integrity of the treatment of individuals in Australia. It is absolutely cruel and it is inhumane. The concept of fairness that underpins the processing of asylum seekers in Australia, so it is fair to retrospectively penalise legitimate refugees after they've been granted permanent residency? I do not think so. Is it fair to penalise someone based on their method of arrival for the rest of their life living here in Australia? Is it fair to undermine a system which is based on merit and legitimate procedures? Quite simply, it is not fair. It is not taking ownership of the refugee issue. It is another example of the incompetence of this minister and the cruelty in applying a directive retrospectively to permanent residents living in this country who have already started a process to bring their family to join them to help rebuild their lives. But of course, unfortunately, this lack of ownership extends to the running of the Manus Island Detention Centre that we have become all too familiar with in the recent weeks. In Senate estimates, I raised the issue of unaccompanied minors being detained on Manus Island. It has become increasingly apparent that the age verification process is inadequate and that we are failing minors by putting them in vulnerable situations by them going to Manus Island, something that the minister himself has said is an inappropriate place for unaccompanied minors to go, for children to go to. The Amnesty International report, which was released in December last year, identified at least 3 detainees on Manus Island Regional Processing Centre as children under the age of 18, and they spoke to at least 3 other detained asylum seekers who gave their ages as between 15 to 17. Age assessment, understandably, is not a straightforward thing for many reasons. Lost documentation, could be false claims of adulthood, or inadequate assessment processes. But these factors that minors are at risk of being assessed as adults and treated as such is simply something that the department and the minister needs to take very seriously. Christmas Island assessments are done too rapidly. They are done in a 48-hour turnaround and difficult to have reassessed once an asylum seeker has already arrived on Manus Island, where there is no assessment of age for them to be processed by. However, today even more information has emerged to question the age verification process. In an article in The Guardian today, it has been revealed through leaked notes that 14 asylum seekers on Manus Island claimed that they were unaccompanied minors between November and January this year. The document contains details of every asylum seeker on Manus Island that has raised claims of being a child. It also contained worrying indications that many asylum seekers are transferred to Manus Island without having their ages properly verified. This goes to the heart of the issue of the age assessment process that is conducted on Christmas Island. And if I can share one of the case notes in this Guardian article, which says, and I quote, M states that he told immigration at Christmas Island he was 16 years old and that they sent him here because he couldn't provide the necessary documentation. Well, how can you expect an unaccompanied minor who has arrived here, trying to flee persecution, arrived here seeking asylum, to have original birth certificates on hand when they are, displaced and simply are not going to have a nice, formal copy of their birth certificate? It is simply ridiculous for the department to expect them to have such, and of course, without such necessary documentation, for them to therefore make the call to send them to Manus Island, a place, by the way, that Minister Morrison has said is an inappropriate place for children to be sent. Now, Professor Mary Crock is an expert in policy on unaccompanied minors who has been very shocked by this, but also has raised the issue of psychosocial cognitive testing to be used when it comes to age assessment. But again, this is used to determine the ages of young asylum seekers, but these tests, as she has referred to, are not being used properly on Christmas Island. I would think such psychosocial cognitive testing would provide a better outcome to determine the age verification of young people seeking asylum than simply asking them if they've got an original copy of their birth certificate or any other documentation. So if Minister Morrison is serious when he says it is an inappropriate place for children to be sent to Manus Island, what is he going to do to ensure the necessary age assessment processes are in place to avoid any more children being sent to Manus Island in the future? This report today, these leaked notes that The Guardian have put forward, is alarming to know that there were up to 14 children on Manus Island. It is only my hope that there were no children on Manus Island at the time of the recent riot that recently occurred. I know that Minister Morrison maintains there are no unaccompanied minors on Manus and that there weren't any on Manus during the unrest. But the question is, how do they actually know if the age assessment process they carried out was A, of an ad hoc nature, B, of a 48-hour turnaround, and C, not done as thoroughly as they probably should have done it using a psychosocial cognitive testing process that Professor Crock has pointed to as the best way forward? These are really significant issues that have been raised today. They are just another example of the fact that this minister is simply incompetent in dealing with the guardianship of young people seeking asylum in this country, of the handling of Manus Island detention facility in total, and where he needs to come clean and provide both the public, the Parliament, with a clear understanding of what is the way forward when it comes to dealing with asylum seekers in offshore detention facilities, because his record to date is pretty poor, let alone the ongoing punitive measures that he has put in place through Direction 62 that I referred to earlier. A punitive measure that is punishing people that are now part of our community. They have been granted refugee status, they are permanent residents. They have the right to settle and live a productive life in our country, contribute to our country with the opportunity of their family joining them, just like we all live with our families. I think it's very cruel, I think it's inhumane, and I think it's something that should definitely be looked at as a reversal, or at least not applied retrospectively to those that are already living here in Australia.
Thank you, Senator Singh.